So your partner just went radio silent after you had an amazing date night together. Sound familiar? If you're dealing with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, I'm about to tell you why everything you think you should do is probably making things worse. Okay, let's be real for a second. We've all been there. Things are going great, you feel close, and then suddenly it's like they've built a wall overnight. They're not responding to texts the same way, they seem distant. And if you're anything like I used to be, your first instinct is probably to figure out what the hell happened. But here's the thing. When you're dating someone with an avoidant attachment style, that instinct, it's your worst enemy. I'm going to share 3 things that literally everyone does wrong in this situation, and trust me, I learned these the hard way. Stick around because by the end of this, you'll understand why your brain is basically sabotaging your relationship. Understanding avoidant attachment. But actually. Alright, so attachment styles. I know, it sounds like psychology textbook stuff, but bear with me because this actually matters. People with avoidant attachment basically learned growing up that needing people emotionally was risky. Maybe their parents were dealing with their own stuff. Maybe they got the message that being clingy was bad. Or maybe they just learned that the safest bet was to handle things on their own. And look, about 1/4 of people are like this. It's not some rare thing. These aren't people who don't want love. They're people whose nervous system learned that getting too close feels dangerous. When things get intense, their brain literally hits the panic button. I always think of it like this. Imagine if every time you reached for a glass of water as a kid, sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't, and sometimes you got your hand slapped away. Eventually, you'd probably stop reaching, right? You'd get really good at not being thirsty. That's kind of what happened to them, but with emotional stuff. The 3 things everyone gets wrong. Mistake number 1, the chase. AKA, how to guarantee they'll run. This one's brutal because it feels so logical. They're pulling away, so obviously you should pull them back, right? Wrong. So wrong. I have a friend, let's call her Jessica, who was dating this guy for about 6 months. Things were good, really good. They spent this incredible weekend together, talked about future plans, the whole thing. Then Monday comes, and he's different. Short texts, busy with work, just not the same energy. So what does Jessica do? She goes into full detective mode. Texting him good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey, how was your day? Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong? And the more she chased, the more he pulled back. It was like watching someone try to hug a cactus. The harder you squeeze, the more it hurts. Here's what's happening in their brain when you do this. You're basically confirming their worst fear about relationships. That they're suffocating. That people will always want more than they can give. Their stress response kicks in and they literally cannot think straight. Mistake number 2, making it about you. Spoiler alert, it's not. This one hits different because our brains are basically meaning-making machines, right? Something changes and we immediately start writing stories about why. If he really cared about me, he wouldn't need space. I must have said something wrong. Maybe I'm just not interesting enough. I used to do this thing where I'd replay entire conversations looking for the moment I messed up. Like I was some kind of relationship detective trying to solve the case of the distant boyfriend. But here's what I learned. Their need for space has nothing to do with your worth as a person. It's like, you know how some people get overwhelmed in crowded places? It's not because the people around them are bad people. It's just how their nervous system works. Same thing here. Mistake number 3, emotional dumping. or how to make everything worse. Okay, this one's tough, because when someone you care about starts acting distant, of course you have feelings about it. You're hurt, confused, maybe scared. Those feelings are totally valid. But, and this is a big but, when your avoidant partner is already feeling overwhelmed, having a big emotional conversation about the relationship is like throwing gasoline on a fire. I'm talking about those conversations that start with, "We need to talk," and end with someone crying or storming out, where you're trying to explain how their behavior makes you feel, and they're just sitting there looking like a deer in headlights. Their heart rate literally spikes during these conversations. They go into fight or flight mode and cannot process what you're saying rationally. So all that important stuff you need them to understand? It's just white noise to them in that moment. What actually works? Plot twist. Give space without vanishing. So if chasing doesn't work, what does? This thing I call loving detachment. It's not about playing games or giving them the silent treatment. It's about respecting their need for space while staying secure in yourself. When they start pulling back, instead of ramping up the contact, try something like, "Hey, I can tell you might need some space right now, and that's totally okay. I'll be here when you're ready to connect." And then, this is the hard part, you actually give them that space. No follow-up texts asking if they saw your message, no checking their Instagram stories to see if they're ignoring you specifically. You trust that they heard you. This works because it shows them something they've rarely experienced, that they can have space in a relationship without it becoming a crisis. Stay in your own lane. Here's something nobody talks about. Having a life outside your relationship isn't just nice to have, it's essential when you're with an avoidant partner. When they pull back and you don't fall apart, it's incredibly attractive to them. Not in a manipulative way, but because it feels safe. They can process their emotions without feeling responsible for managing yours too. I started doing this thing where when I felt that panic creeping in, that "why haven't they texted me back" anxiety, I'd go do something that made me feel good. Call a friend, go for a run, work on a project I cared about. Basically anything that reminded me that I'm a whole person with or without them. Be the calm in their storm. Instead of emotional flooding, try being consistently calm and predictable. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless or suppressing your needs. It means learning to express yourself in ways that don't trigger their overwhelm response. So instead of, "Your distance is driving me crazy and I don't know what I did wrong and I need to know where we stand right now," which is a lot, try something like, "I miss you and I'm looking forward to connecting when you're ready." Same feeling, completely different delivery. One feels like pressure, the other feels like an invitation. The real truth about avoidant people. Here's what most people don't get. Avoidant partners want connection just as much as anyone else. The difference is their nervous system learned that connection can be dangerous. When they pull away, they're not rejecting you. They're trying to regulate themselves so they can come back and connect from a better place. If you can see their pullback as self-care rather than abandonment, everything shifts. It's like if someone had a bad knee and walked with a slight limp. You wouldn't take the limp personally or try to force them to walk normally. You'd understand they're doing their best with what they're working with. Playing the long game. Building something real with an avoidant partner isn't about changing them or fixing their attachment style. It's about creating enough safety that they can gradually let their guard down. Some people in this situation do become more secure over time. Others might always need more space than the average person, but they can still have amazing, committed relationships if both people understand the dynamic. The key thing to remember is that you can't love someone out of their attachment patterns, but you can love them in a way that doesn't trigger all their defenses. When to walk away. Real talk for a second. There's a difference between someone who has an avoidant attachment style and someone who's just not that into you or treating you badly. Avoidant partners still show up. They might be more subtle about it, they might need more time to open up, but they're still present in the relationship. They don't leave you hanging for weeks or make you feel bad for having normal human emotions. If someone is consistently dismissing your needs, refusing to have any real conversations, or making you question your sanity, that's not attachment style stuff. That's just poor treatment. And you don't have to accept it. The bottom line. Look, dating an avoidant partner isn't always easy. It requires patience, understanding, and a really solid sense of self. But when you stop chasing, stop taking things personally, and stop overwhelming them with emotions, something beautiful can happen. You become the kind of person who feels safe to them. Someone who doesn't need them to be okay, who doesn't make their need for space a crisis, and who shows love through consistency rather than intensity. And honestly, that's attractive to everyone, not just avoidant people. Remember, you can't control how fast they open up or how they process emotions, but you can control how you respond. When you respond from security instead of fear, you create exactly the conditions that help avoidant partners feel safe enough to get closer. It's not about having no needs of your own. It's about meeting your own emotional needs while being patient with their process.